Hello, this is Brave Sir Robin coming to you from Parts Unknown. Here today with another DVD review, and I decided to pick out the DVD that I'm going to do today because Ring of Honor is going to be celebrating their 10th anniversary pretty soon. So I figured what better thing to do than look back at their actual start, the Era of Honor Begins, which is their first ever Ring of Honor show, and see how it measures up 10 years later and probably talk about how far Ring of Honor has come since those 10 years. So before the first match even starts, we get some poorly shot video footage showing a tag team called Da Hit Squad, that's with D-A, not the, giving a pep talk to a bunch of fans and introducing the new fans to Ring of Honor. I guess in early days they thought the Da Hit Squad were the perfect guys to represent ROH. I wasn't following indie wrestling at the time, but I don't know if there really were people who highly regarded them and were paying to see Dan Maff, aka Mafia, and Monster Mac. I don't know, I can't imagine why they would. So for the first ever official Ring of Honor match, we have the Christopher Street Connection make their way to the ring. Buffy and Mace, accompanied by Allison Danger, who Steve Corino refers to on commentary as a hag. His own sister right there, for those who don't know. The commentators, they're outraged by the presence of the Christopher Street Connection and complain how they represent everything that Ring of Honor isn't. And everything that Ring of Honor is going to be all about, you know, because they dress flamboyantly and live alternative lifestyles. Plus they hammer home how ROH is not about gimmicks and entertainment. So guess where this is going. So Buffy and Mace, they get in the ring, they cut a promo, they end up actually kissing each other, and they declare that Ring of Honor ROH is going to be called Ring of Homos, which leads to the Hit Squad hitting the ring and laying a beating out on them. I never heard an opening bell, but Mafia nails one of the Connection, I don't know which one, with a burning hammer and gets a quick pin. And after the match, Allison Danger is powerbombed through a table, Dudley style. So that's the first ever Ring of Honor segment. Two fat guys in tank tops and track pants and bandanas having a match that was basically just an excuse for gay bashing and woman beating. Luckily, it can only go up from here. So the first official build match of the show, we have a very young Jay Briscoe versus the Amazing Red. It is amazing to think that after all this time that it's the Briscoes that are still around 10 years later in Ring of Honor. Jay is accompanied by his brother Mark, who isn't wrestling because at this time he was only 17 years old. Storyline here is that Mark thinks Jay is wrestling poorly. He's like shaking his head a lot and criticizing him. Really, I don't see the point in setting up tension in a tag team that's just making their debut, though. It's not like they have a lot of history so then they could start teasing dissension. So what reason is there really to care? I mean, they're making their debut and already they're breaking up. I don't see the point in it. So Red at this time, he wasn't much more than a spot monkey at this point in his career. And Jay, he's very green. But the match is still okay. It's not great, but it's still passable. Red wins the match with a spiral tap and then a standing shooting star press. And after the match, Red and Jay shake hands and they point out how Ring of Honor is about sportsmanship and not about rivalries. So no storylines at all, really? So before the next match starts, we get a segment with Homicide and his partner Boogaloo in some vacant lot, which Homicide calls his former home. They find a rubber chicken on the ground and they decide to keep it. Okay. So for the next match, we have Xavier versus Scoot Andrews, who claims that 2002 will be his year. Spoiler, it wasn't. Not much to really talk about. They try to build up both guys as the future of Ring of Honor, but neither guy really does anything special. Scoot, he keeps trying to put Xavier away, but Xavier keeps lucking out and kicking out, keeps himself from getting pinned by putting his foot on the ropes, and eventually squeaks out the pin after a fluke neck breaker. After the match, Scoot is pissed, but Xavier points to the Ring of Honor logo that's on the wall, and the two shake hands after all. Basically just an excuse to let us know about the code of honor that Ring of Honor had in its early days. Xavier, of course, he would go on to, in history, is the unanimously decided choice for the worst Ring of Honor champion ever. Take that for what you will. So back with some tag team action. Now we have the Boogie Knights, Danny Drake and Mike Tobin. I really had to do a Google search to find out these two guys' names. I hope you guys appreciate that. It's really two bland guys wrestling in t-shirts. They come to the ring, and their opponents are the Natural Born Sinners, Homicide and Boogaloo, who come to the ring in orange jumpsuit and masks, and one of them swinging around a chainsaw. So what's this about Ring of Honor having no gimmicks? They just proved yourselves wrong in the very next segment. This match is a total squash as Drake and Tobin get in almost no offense at all. But rather than actually beating the Knights, the Sinners bring out the rubber chicken they found earlier and beat on them with it, and which actually leads to a DQ. This leads to the Sinners putting a beating on the referee, H.C. Loke, who they beat bloody, and give Homicide even bust out his kudo driver slash vertebreaker slash cop killer on him. The Boogie Knights then make a quick exit out of the arena. So what's this about Ring of Honor being about honor and sportsmanship and not about angles? Obviously not. So now we have the Ultimate Aerial Elimination match between the 6 participants, Joel Maximo, Jose Maximo, the Amazing Red, who comes back for double duty, Quiet Storm, Chris Devine, and Brian XL, and special guest referee Mikey Whipwreck, who trained 5 of these 6 guys. You know, in the early days when people who'd never really seen an ROH show, they complained about it being just nothing but a bunch of generic guys doing flips. This match probably helped them get that reputation. Not much for psychology, obviously. It is just a fast-paced spot fest. The match goes on for quite some time before we even get any eliminations. But once they start doing the thing where we get a whole bunch one after the other, and even a double pin, which leaves Joel Maximo and Quiet Storm as the last 2 left in the ring. The 2 exchange horribly choreographed spots, and eventually Storm wins with a move called the Storm Cradle Driver. I think this match just went on for way too long. They should have made it a lot quicker. So now here's a match that's not even listed on the DVD packaging. We have Prince Nana walking around backstage, and he heads to the ring and he's looking for an opponent. And after a pep talk from Steve Corino himself, we find out that it's going to be ECW's Towel Boy, Eric Tuttle. You know, the kid who would run around the ring wiping the sweat off the ropes, which he does before the match starts as well. Another complete squash, and Nana destroys Towel Boy after an exploder suplex. I really didn't get the point of this segment. Nana would later go on to become a much better manager than a wrestler as a manager of the Embassy, the best heel group that Ring of Honor probably ever had. So now we get some tag team action featuring 4 trainees from the Shawn Michaels Texas Wrestling Academy. We have Michael Shane, aka Matt Bentley from TNA, and his partner Oz, but not Kevin Nash, oddly. That would be awesome, though. Versus Spanky, aka Brian Kendrick, and Ikea Loa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. The audio is really bad, so I can never really tell. And on commentary, they said it a couple times, but it's really hard to hear. The audio is really bad on the DVD. So what this match is, the winner gets a contract with ROH. 2 problems here. For one, I don't think anybody's going to believe Ring of Honor had contracts at this point in their existence. It's even hard to believe that they even have them now, for that matter. And for another thing, it's not the winning team that wins the contract for ROH. It's the person who actually gets the pin. So really, one would be competing with their own tag team partner. Yeah, that makes sense. Storyline here, Spanky seems to be the most disliked of the bunch because of his cockiness, which I guess is frowned upon in Ring of Honor now, you know, having some character, God forbid. And of course, no one ever wants to tag their own partner, so they end up trying to win by themselves. Spanky eventually wins with the sliced bread number 2 on Oz. Silly stipulations aside, the match was decent, but I'm not sure whatever became of the other 2 besides Matt Bentley and Brian Kendrick. So before the next match starts, we have some backstage segments from the 6 who were in the elimination match. They're all arguing and screaming with each other, which pisses off Mikey Whipwreck, who brings in Super Crazy to translate, and another match is made, which is really hard to understand because of the bad audio and the screaming over each other. Then we see a bloody H.C. Loke on his cell phone, talking to someone about the beating that the Sinners put on him, and it vows revenge. Of course, it's later revealed that he's talking to Tony DeVito, and this is what's leading to the formation of the Carnage Crew, which would lead to many crappy matches in ROH's future. Now a dream match of sorts, where we have the late great Eddie Guerrero facing off against Super Crazy, where Eddie is in a match where Eddie is defending the IWA Intercontinental Championship. This is some Puerto Rican fed. I'm not really familiar with them. The crowd is really into both Eddie and Super Crazy, of course, and it is pointed out that this is only the 2nd ever match between the 2, but they do mesh quite well. Eddie was on his road to recovery at this point and not back in the WWE yet, but is still wrestling like he's trying to impress, unlike most of the big stars on the indie scene who are really just content to phone into performances and collect a paycheck. The match is very fast-paced, and Eddie brings in his intensity to the match, and it ends up being very good. And I'd go so far to call this match a hidden gem from Eddie's career, because you'll probably never see this on a WWE compilation or anything else for that matter. Eddie goes on to miss a frog splash, and then Super Crazy rolls him up to win the match. If anything on this disc, I would recommend checking out this one match for sure. So now we have the main event of the show, where we have a triple threat match between Low-Ki, aka Senshi in TNA, and Kaval in WWE, versus Bryan Danielson, also known as Daniel Bryan in WWE, current world champion, and Christopher Daniels, also known as Christopher Daniels. So while the undercard for this show was pretty weak, I'd say this three-way match was pretty good and would go on to set the standard for Ring of Honor. It still holds up quite well, even after all the time. Sure, many matches have surpassed this one, but this is exactly what ROH needed to do to get themselves on the map in their early days. When this show happened, it was only about maybe less than a year since WCW and ECW both closed, and TNA was still months away from their inception. So right now, this was a true alternative to the stuff that was only WWE was presenting at the time. So a lot of cool and creative double team moves too, including the spot where both Low-Ki and Danielson are taking turns kicking Christopher Daniels in the back, which leads to a pissed off Daniels getting up to his feet and screaming at them to stop kicking him, a spot he has reused in TNA in his famous matches with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. So as everybody should know, Low-Ki doesn't do jobs, so of course he ends up winning. This match is no different, and Low-Ki wins the match after a key crusher onto Christopher Daniels. And Daniels, after he was already hurting from Bryan Danielson's cattle mutilation as well. Afterwards, Low-Ki and Danielson shake hands and show their respect to each other and embrace, and except for Christopher Daniels, he's having none of it. He doesn't want any handshaking or anything like that. Setting up his quest to destroy the Code of Honor. Of course, my problem with this is that I kind of agree with Daniels. The Code of Honor was pretty stupid. Everyone else is pretty pissed about it, though, and they all get mad at him. Future matches are made for future volumes. So that's my review of The Era of Honor Begins from Ring of Honor. I decided to check it out to see if it still holds up 10 years later, and other than the last two matches, it really doesn't. Of course, Ring of Honor would go on to become the biggest independent federation of today, and they're still around now, even after 10 years, which is amazing in itself. I mean, unlike TNA as well, Ring of Honor and other independents are the true alternative to the WWE, so they are worth giving your support and checking out. I don't even think this is in print anymore, so it might be kind of hard to get. If you really want it for historical purposes, worth checking out, but really, other than Eddie and Super Crazy and the triple threat match that was the main event, it's not very good. Just know what you're in for and have an open mind. Know it just gets better from here. So from their humble beginnings to 10 years later, make sure you support independent wrestling. This is Brave Sir Robin signing off. I'll see you later. Hey all you jabronis out there, if you liked the previous video that you just saw, make sure you check out all Sir Robin's other videos, and feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. And you can also follow him on Twitter and like his Facebook at the same time. Make sure you do that or The Rock's gonna stick his size 16 boot up your candy ass. If you smell what Rock is cooking.